So advocacy group Women and Men Against Child Abuse says the suspension of Parktown Boys High Principal Malcolm Williams is a step closer to achieving justice for 13-year-old Enock Mpianzi, and Teachers Union SADTU says action should also be taken against those teachers who may have been in dereliction of duty. So tonight we'll also examine the psychological impact of this tragedy on the teachers, the learners and the families themselves. Joining me now to discuss this a bit further on the line is the founding director of Women and Men Against Child Abuse, Miranda Jordan. Also on the line joining me is SADTU General Secretary Mugwena Maluleke, and in studio with me is the Teddy Bear Clinic's Dr. Shaheda Omar. To you all, thank you very much for joining us this evening. Miranda, I think I'm going to start with you this evening. I know you've got to leave us very shortly. You've long called for the suspension of the principal, so I'm sure you welcome that move today.
Yes, no, we certainly did. I think that the NEC's preliminary report has highlighted some serious issues that the school and the district will have to answer to. And the suspension of Mr. Williams, the principal, for us is an appropriate response while the full investigation is underway. The report by the NEC, it certainly highlighted, as I said, administrative failings around the necessary permissions and the approval for the camp, including that these were not timelessly dealt with. And, you know, for us, the department, the school management, the school governing body will have to deal with investigations that have now arisen. And in addition, the investigation into the professional roles and responsibilities of both the district officials and the educators is something that we await the outcome of the inquest into the possible criminal liability if this unnatural death is seen to be deliberately negligent.
Yeah, some of the shocking revelations, Miranda, pertain to the fact that the trip itself was not authorized, so it was not supposed to happen in the first place. But what you're also calling for, we heard the MEC talk about the escalation for approval relating to water activities, but you want that to extend to all so-called dangerous activities in all schools.
Absolutely. I think although, as we mentioned in our release, that water-based activities and drowning are, when we look at children dying unnaturally in South Africa, that is sort of the fourth reason why. But we just feel there are many other activities that also, and would be remiss just to extend it only to the water-based activities. And in a few months, we have a problem perhaps with hiking or climbing or mountaineering or other things that are also have a danger basis.
Yeah. I'm going to let you go, Miranda. Thank you very much indeed for your time. I'm going to stay with Mugwena Maluleke from the South African Democratic Teachers Union, as well as Dr. Omar, who's joining us here in studio. Let me come to you, the SADTU General Secretary there, Mugwena Maluleke. Mr. Maluleke, thanks for your time. Indeed, shocking that this trip should not have happened in the first place. There was no approval for it.
Yeah, shocking, and indeed losing a life is really regrettable. It wasn't supposed to have taken place because clearly it is that as an accounting officer, as a principal, I should know very well that you need the quote of 3 months for you to be able to get that approval before you can take learners out on any excursion. And so forth, that now the teachers who might have also been involved there unknowingly had undertaken the trip without having any clarity on whether this trip has been authorized or not. And therefore, these is some of the things that have got to be really unearthed. And there's a lot that still has got to be unearthed around the conduct of the school itself, around what we hear from the audio clip and so forth. And indeed, this is shocking to the nation because we will not be able to recover that life.
Dr. Shaheda Omar from the Teddy Bear Clinic, let's bring you in. I mean, the psychological impact of what has happened, for the teachers, for the Mpianzi family, for the learners who were also on that school trip must be devastating.
Indeed, I think you've highlighted beautifully, because it's not just the family. Our condolences to the family. This is a tragedy, an epic tragedy that one can never come to terms with or resonate or reconcile with. But if we look at the broader community, the whole Parktonian community, even ex-Parktonians are affected by this. this has not only just become the huge loss, the shock, the humiliation, the fear, the anxiety, the anger, the infuriation as a result of alarming calls, distress signals made repeatedly, and it being turned to deaf ears. Children look up to authority figures, to officials, to educators. Those are their role models. Adults are there supposed to protect children and to listen actively, deep listening, but it was all to deaf ears. It was almost as if it didn't matter. So the kind of responses, the trauma that we're seeing is a gross violation. It's a letdown, a betrayal, a total betrayal of not being heard, not being responded to. So we are faced with not only the present trauma, because the present trauma could evoke past experiences of trauma. So it becomes something that is uncontained, uncontrollable, and one cannot actually project the impact and the trajectory and how long it will take for the whole school community to heal from this.
Dr. Omar, it seems in this instance, for lack of a better word, the learners had been sworn to some kind of secrecy. There seems to be a culture of silence, and you alluded to that in your previous answer. How dangerous is this, and how does this fuel, keeping that trauma inside, in particular for these learners who called out for help and tried to raise concerns, but all of that fell on deaf ears?
So if we just look at the issue of the gendered perspective, we're looking at toxic masculinity, and often there's a confusion between assertion and aggression. And in terms of the secrecy, the allegiance, the alliance, and the loyalty, already in the first 2 days, it was already that what happens in Parktown Boys remains in Parktown Boys. We had 2 children that we are working with, and from that it emerged. They were not willing to speak about anything. So already the code of silence, that code of secrecy, and the history, the tradition, and the belief that they are not allowed to speak about it. But if they speak about it, they are not seen as the whole issue of masculinity, of being part of this group. And often children will suffer, self-sacrifice in order to belong, to be accepted, to receive recognition and validation.
All right. Let me bring in Mugwena Maluleke from the South African Democratic Teachers Union. Mr. Maluleke, I hope you're still with us. I mean, the role of the school governing body has really been brought into question here, because in speaking to your colleague from Gauteng a bit earlier on, he did explain that on the application form pertaining to this particular trip is meant to have the signature of the school governing body itself. So the trip went ahead under the watch of the school governing body. Should the school governing body itself also face some kind of sanction regarding this?
That the school governing body is responsible eventually for the running of the school, and then they are there to assist and obviously support the principal in terms of running the school. So therefore they have a responsibility, and we believe that clearly it is an investigation in terms of the terms of reference should be able to also subject them to some kind of investigation that would also include sanction if it is found that they also have abdicated their responsibility, that they have allowed the principal to undertake a trip of our children without the approval. And secondly, it is that because there are a lot of things that are really being said and they need to be tested, it is clear that the teachers themselves look upon the school governing body to also be managing that. And therefore, for that reason, therefore, the school governing body must answer, especially this thing of the secrecy of the school, because it would mean that they are also involved in this thing of saying you are not identified as a man in the boys' school if you say things that are not supposed to be said. And so we can't have that kind of a situation where we really traumatize our children, ostracize our children because of whatever they have said, because they need to know the truth. They need to know what is not the truth. And then if they are being taught and being guided that they must lie, that they cannot say what they're supposed to be saying, I don't think that the SGB can be left without having been sanctioned on this, because it would mean this is a policy of the school. The SGB is the one that adopts the policy and not only the principal.
Well, the investigation continues, but obviously the teachers cannot escape scrutiny at this point. I mean, it begs to ask the question, where were the teachers when, as they had been accompanying the boys on this trip, while, yes, they're at a lodge and there are other individuals who were supervising, where were the teachers? They were part of the group of people who were sent. Parents had basically handed over responsibility to the school in the form of the teachers to okay this trip, to go with them on this trip, and the teachers were nowhere to be found. Should the teachers themselves also face tough investigation and possible sanction as the belonging union, SADTU?
Yeah. It's unfortunate that the teachers, this time, they will not be able to escape this scrutiny on the basis that they also have pastoral duties as part of their duty as teachers, because, as you say, there's an expectation from the parents that we have taken the children, we've given you to the children, and therefore, in terms of our training as the teachers, there's what we call loco parentis, and therefore, you take an oath that you are going to be caring for this particular learner in your custody, because for now the parents have handed that particular custody and the welfare of the child to the teacher. They will not be able to escape the scrutiny. This is unfortunate because, one, they were supposed to be there to supervise the children. We would have expected that there is a lifeguard who travels with them in the river. These are children, honestly, they are 13 years old, and therefore they need constant supervision, constant support, guidance in terms of how they do things. Now, according to the audio clip, it is like the teachers were nowhere to be found except to be at the lodge. We find that very unfortunate, and unfortunately they've got to be investigated and then sanctioned, or action has got to be taken against them. It's unfortunate that they have abdicated their responsibility from the preliminary investigation.
I wish we had more time to dissect this issue. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Initially, the founder, director of Women and Men Against Child Abuse, Miranda Jordan, was joining us on the line. Just got off the line now, SADTU General Secretary Mugwena Maluleke, and the Teddy Bear Clinic's Dr. Shaheda Omar. I wish we had more time to spend with you, Dr. Omar. Thank you very much indeed for always availing yourself for SABC News.